Can we end animal slaughter by 2025? Welcome to Activist. I'm Gareth.
And I'm Jackie. Today we have the huge pleasure of introducing you to New Zealand's best known and loved animal rights activist, Sandra Kyle.
In this episode, we talk about her goal to try and end animal slaughter by 2025, her incredible solar vigils, and she also gives some insights into her book, Glass Walls, and sings a beautiful song for us. So we hope you enjoy this episode as much as we do. If you enjoy it, smash that like button, drop a comment below, and also subscribe to the YouTube channel for more episodes and series.
It is such an honour to have you with us here today, Sandra, and introduce you properly to the rest of the world as New Zealand's favourite animal rights and liberation activist. To start our interview, we would love to know what it was that brought you to veganism in the first place. As a lifelong animal lover, was there a specific sort of catalyst that sparked this philosophical belief for you?
I thank you very much, Jackie and Gareth, for having me on. It's an honour, and as far as your question goes, I became vegetarian when I was at university, so that's around about 50 years ago now, and it was an ethical choice. I hated the idea of animals having to die for my food. But for some reason, I didn't join the dots. I didn't know about dairying. It didn't occur to me that a cow would have to be pregnant to make milk. And I had no idea about bobby calves. So I was a vegetarian for decades. And it was only 10 or 11 years ago when I went to a SAFE conference. The last presentation of the morning was on dairying, and I found out the truth about insemination and bobby calves, and it was like a sledgehammer. I had honestly never thought about it, and when the lights came up at the end of the session, I was in a daze. And I sat there for a while, and then I walked out to where everyone was having food, but I didn't stay for lunch. I went for a walk around the area where the conference was being held for about half an hour. And by the time I took my seat again for the afternoon session, I was vegan. And I've been vegan since then.
Wow. It's amazing just how much of an impact it makes learning about dairy for so many people. And we always sort of say it's one of the worst parts about the animal agriculture industry because it's not as plain and simple as raising and slaughtering. It's a case of raising, torturing before slaughter, and it's just such a barbaric practice, and it's so hard to see that because it's so well masked in everything in our daily culture. We're always told like how
happy cows,
how wholesome, you got to have your milk for strong bones and all that other cow effluent, to put it politely. But we understand that it was when you were living in the Waikato, an area famously known for its animal agriculture, that you began attending vigils. This has become your predominant form of activism, but prior to vigils, had you been part of any other kinds of advocacy actions, or were vigils your initial sort of entrance point into the world of activism?
Since the 1990s, I had been doing volunteering for Save Animals from Exploitation. And they were mainly things like stalls that I'd do over a weekend, hand out leaflets, raise awareness, that sort of thing. I ended up coordinating Safe volunteers in my area for some time. But I had done other things. I had been part of demonstrations outside of factory farms. I attended and organised demonstrations outside Countdown and other supermarkets protesting against caged eggs. So there had been actions before then, but I was a lecturer in a university of technology, and that took a lot of my time and energy. So it wasn't until I retired at 65, 7.5 years ago, that I was to really able to throw myself in the way that I wanted to into activism. And so I did, and I came to live in the Waikato, in Hamilton initially, and then I went to live in Otahonga. But where I was in Hamilton, I joined a group of activists, of local activists, and we were brainstorming one day what we could do. And one of the things that someone suggested was we do slaughterhouse vigils. And as soon as I heard that, it had a deep resonance with me. Sometimes I think that our future can come back and intersect with the present in our lives. And this was one of those times. So I knew that I wanted to do this sort of action. And so we started. There were a few of us to begin with, and others fell away. They had full-time jobs, families, more commitments than I did, I think. And so I was able to continue. I wanted to continue, even though I was by myself. So I did for about 2 years.
It's amazing. And, anyone, if you've read Sandra's work on our website or on our Vegan FTA social media, you'll see that Sandra is a very prolific activist and hugely, dedicated to your vigils. And thank you so much for that. And among your many talents, you are also the author of a book called Glass Walls. When was it that you wrote that? And what was your plea to the government in it?
So...
Oh, wow. I need to read it.
It's just a slim book. I called it Glass Walls after Paul McCartney's famous saying, if slaughterhouses had glass walls, we'd all be vegetarian. And the plea was for the government to close all slaughterhouses before the year 2025. Basically, all it is a compilation of my posts that I would do after a vigil. So for nearly 3 years, I just went back. When I was compiling the book, I went back and looked through certain of the posts and decided to put them in. And there's a lot of photos in it as well of my vigils and vigils of other activists in Auckland and other centres. But would you like me to read a little bit from it?
Sure, go ahead. I'm sure our listeners would love to have a little excerpt from there.
So it might just give you an idea. So this was in April 2017. I did the vigils every Friday, and I would come home of a Friday evening and write them up. So this is just part of one. It's a column and a half. Is that too long?
No, go ahead.
It's fine. You read whatever you want to.
Today a man got off a bus and started ambling towards the lane. He was about 40 years old and his long hair was in a ponytail. He walked with a pronounced limp. Catching my eye as he passed, he showed no expression except for mild curiosity. "What's your job?" I called after him silently. "Do you herd the animals into the waiting area, keeping an eye out for those who are panicking or showing resistance? Do you force them down the tunnel leading to the kill floor? Are you the one who shoots them in the head with a stun gun? Or is it your job to hang them upside down on the processing line?" If your task is to sever the carotid artery and jugular veins, how do you keep their blood from spilling all over you? Perhaps you're the one who removes the head, or the feet, or the inner organs, hanging them up on meat hooks, or throwing them in an offal pile. Are you the hide remover, or does it befall you to sterilize the carcasses and transport them to refrigerators? Perhaps you are in the burning department or the waste products department, or are you a trained butcher and spend the day slicing the flesh according to standard cuts, ready for packing and distribution? Are you a packer? Are you a cleaner, mopping up blood and fecal matter pretty much the whole day long? Do you ever tire of the repetitive nature of your work, or is it every day different for you? Every day a new challenge, every day a different animal, hundreds and hundreds of them. Working with knives and saws, being exposed to blood and body waste, do you ever feel, when you hop in the shower, that it is hard to get yourself clean? Please don't take it personally. I understand you have to earn your living, have a family to support. Maybe you can't get another job, and ultimately, you're no more to blame for this unspeakable horror than the consumer who goes into the supermarket and picks out a tray of meat from the fridge. So, possibly hard to listen to and hard to read as well, but of course that's the reality.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. And it really does, I
Your
from
work
what
is so important. Like, how would we know this stuff otherwise?
but what I've seen and read about, what happens in the slaughterhouses when you explain it and describe it in such a way, and all the different facets that go into it, it really does show the horror because, as they like to, what do they call it? They call them the meat works out here instead of a slaughterhouse. And so by doing that, they're trying to take the edge off it, but that's because they don't want to reveal, as you've just revealed, what really goes on inside there and the true nature of everything. It's just, it's horrible what we do every day to these animals, but luckily we have fantastic activists like yourself, who are out there bringing attention to it, and hopefully this won't carry on. But in regards to bringing attention to things, for 4.5 years, you ran the Safe and Sound radio show alongside fellow Kiwi activist and vegan FTA contributor Lindley Tulloch. This show provided a much-needed counter-narrative to the usual Kiwi carnist culture by discussing a large array of animal rights topics. Sadly, the show is no longer running, but it must have been so thrilling to be bringing that voice for the animals out there, especially in the Waikato region, giving them hell. What was it like doing this? What was the experience of running that radio show? And also, for any of our activists who might be interested in getting into this form of media, do you have any advice for people wanting to broadcast themselves on radio?
So just to lead into my answer, when I went to live in Hamilton, I still was teaching part-time at the University of Waikato and Wintec and other places. I was teaching English as a second language and also a little bit of French to Japanese students who would come for kind of taster courses to New Zealand. And at one of the functions, I think it was at Wintec, someone told me that he had his own radio show, and this was at Free FM, which is an access community radio station. And the idea sprouted that I could perhaps do an animal rights show. I knew that there was not one in New Zealand. So I just walked in one day and they didn't have an animal rights show, and they were very welcoming of the idea. So they trained me in the studio, lots of different knobs that I had to know what to do with. and gave me a manual on presentation techniques, that kind of thing. And I was pretty much underway. I asked Linley to join me because we were friends, and also she's so smart and personable and informed, and I knew should be a great person to have on board. And then we were also joined by Paul Judge, who's another very good broadcaster. So that was our little team. I was there all the time, and the others were there sometimes or a lot of the time as well. But it was a very interesting experience. I learned a lot. It took quite a lot out of me. It could be anything from 8 to 18 hours a week just preparing for one show. But we interviewed people like Peter Singer. His book, Animal Liberation, really touched my soul, and I think and marked my future. I knew when I read that book back in the 70s now that I wanted to make a difference for animals. So there was Peter Singer, Philip Wallen, Wayne Shung, James Aspey, Joey Carbstrong, Anita Crines, Mary Finelli, Captain Paul Watson, so many big names in the world of animal rights. So it was a great honour, but it came to an end finally. It sort of seemed to come to a natural end, but I did enjoy it and I got a lot from it. And as far as advice for anyone, I do think that podcasts and radio shows are really good. It's a flexible format. You can be in the garden or in the kitchen or jogging or anything with earphones in your ear, and you can keep up to date. So, or listen to your favourite show. The advice that I would have for anyone is that if I can do it, you can do it, and if you have a community radio station nearby, go and ask them. But these days, I mean, as you two know, there's so much you can do from your own living room. You can create podcasts and put them online, and so there are so many options for people who like the idea of this kind of broadcasting and want to make a difference this way.
Oh, that's awesome. Good on you for just bowling on in there as well and asking. I mean, it just goes to show it, you know, if you don't ask, you don't get, and it never hurts to ask. And as well as hosting the radio show, you're also well known, especially over here, for gracing the airwaves with your advocacy as the singing vegan. And we're wondering, where did that come from? Why is it that you sing to the animals? I think it's a lovely idea, but, you know, where did that come from to sing to the animals at your vigils? And how have you seen them respond?
I never had the idea, it would be nice to sing to the animals, but it happened first one day when I was on the motorway and saw a truck filled with sheep at the side of the road. And the driver of the truck had gone off to get more animals, and it was quite a hot day and they were all packed together. So I got down. I had been doing my vigils at the stage, and I just was videoing them and talking to them and reaching out and patting them. And I suddenly had the idea that I would sing them a mantra. Do you know what a mantra is? Yeah. I lived in India, and I lived in ashrams, which are spiritual communities. And so I knew some mantras, and it just kind of was a natural expression, I think, of my compassion for them. And also, hopefully, it would be some comfort and a blessing on their souls. So I just started singing. a mantra to them. And because I was already videoing, the song came through in the video, and that was shared quite a lot. And that was the first time. But I felt that the animals understood some way my intention. They could feel my compassion for them. And I was hoping that that might be a comfort to them. So I've pretty much done it ever since. In fact, a friend of mine also, she's got a better voice than me actually, she was singing to the cows just this weekend. And when we put it online, we had some negative remarks, including this kind of thing is useless for the animals and self-indulgent. So, but I very much disagree with that. Cows in particular respond to music. I think the University of Leicester did a study to show that so long as it's sort of gentle and slower music, it definitely does calm cows down, and it can increase their milk production as well. And cynically, farmers can use this to get more milk out of their cows. So it does have an effect. It's not useless. And I don't think it's self-indulgent either. So would you like me to sing a little something?
Yeah,
Yes,
sounds
I'd love to
lovely.
hear it.
I'm a bit embarrassed because the older I get, my voice is deteriorating, gets a bit shaky, and sometimes I just go right under the pitch. But it will show you the kind of thing. I won't sing a mantra. I'll sing. I do this sometimes. I create alternative words to well-known songs. I recently had a friend staying with me, Rob, who does a lot of this, and he does it very well. But just a couple of days ago, I created different words to Streets of London. Do you know that song?
Yes.
Okay. Have you seen the mother in the narrow cell crate? 6 feet long and only 2 feet wide. Pale blue eyes reveal her pain. She'll never see her child again. Her whole existence an intolerable strain. So how can you tell me that it's okay for her to suffer so for you? Let me take you by the hand and lead you through the hell she lives in. I'll show you something to help her you can do. And have you seen the hen who's lying still upon the cage floor? Dirt on her body and open sores, spent from laying eggs for you. There's nothing further she can do. In a few moments she will breathe no more. So how can you tell me that it's okay that she should suffer such a fate? Let me take you by the hand and lead you through the hell she lives in. If we go quickly, it may not be too late.
Oh, Thank you so much. That was
That was
beautiful.
beautiful. But you're the singing vegan. I think I'm going to start getting a name as a crying vegan doing it. That was lovely. Thank you so much for sharing. And you sing as powerfully as you write. And I I've never really thought about the whole singing thing before, but during my years in the industry, milking cows, I can totally understand how it would help the animals and it would be effective. They've spent their whole lives having people yell at them. Farmers are constantly under pressure. It's go, 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 push, push, push. You're moving too slow all the time. So to have someone, they would have never had that calming voice. And I remember when I used to milk the cows, I would always play happy music. And because I was happy at that time, not knowing any better, I would sing away while I was milking the cows. And I think if I was happy and relaxed, and they were a lot less tense, whereas some of the bosses that I worked with, they would play heavy metal, they'd play the rock station. They didn't sing, they just yell. And you could tell that the whole atmosphere was different. So, yeah, I would contradict anyone that says that would not be effective and not be comforting to the cows, or any of the animals that you sing to.
The animals do understand, the cows know. One of the slaughterhouse workers at a regular slaughterhouse we bear witness at said that when we come and sing to the cows, we're disturbing them. However, when Betty was singing the other day, every cow in front of her turned around and looked up at her quietly and calmly. I was standing and looking as well, and when that particular grounds person walked up and down the aisles between the pens, all the cows moved away and huddled away from them. These people treat them indifferently at best and roughly very often. We see drivers with their electric prods to get animals off the truck. Think nothing of jabbing them time and time and time again. So yes, I think animals really can tell the difference between loving, compassionate, caring actions and vibrations and ones that are callous and indifferent and cruel, of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it really does make it. Even thinking in the human animal, I know before this digital age, when we didn't have music we could plug into, people would sing when they were sad. There's so many times of hardship that we know about where there's a lot of music that's been formed from there because it's a way of getting through things. Think about the blues movement, exactly that. And I know for myself, when I was dealing with depression at a young age, I used to go sing Sosban Vach, a Welsh song, down at the beach quite often. Usually it was terrible, but it made me feel slightly better in that moment. And I think all animals can pick up on that resonance, and there's a lot of physics behind that we're all waves of energy, and so yeah, that carries on.
It's lovely. Are you Welsh, Gareth?
Yeah, I'm originally from Wales, although I don't sound like the Welsh boy who I used to be anyway.
I love that accent. And if you're Welsh, you've probably got a lovely voice.
Oh yeah, but like many Welsh blokes, it takes a few pints usually to unlock that one, and then it comes out in dirty Welsh songs, which do not
I
get aired.
disown him then. I pretend I don't know him.
But a point that you touched on earlier was how your activist group there in the Waikato, as things started to carry on, people got busy, their schedules changed, they didn't have the time for the activism. And so it wasn't until for you being retired, you had the time to throw into it fully. And of course, some of these others didn't. And so you carried on attending vigils solo, which is quite a big thing for a lot of people, is doing these sort of actions on your own. And when you decided to carry on doing it, was there some factors that persuaded you to keep going it alone?
The greatness of the need, the horror that is with me every day of what we do to our helpless, innocent fellow beings, and we do it with impunity, and we do it because it's normal. I have such a deep sense of the injustice that is done that to them, that doing something for me is much better than doing nothing. So I can't do nothing. I couldn't live with myself. There's a quote by Martin Luther King, something like, there comes a point when your action is not political, nor popular, nor something else, but you continue to do it because your conscience tells you that it's right. And that's what it is for me. And also because I want to help. I want to do everything that I can as an individual to try and change the way things are for animals.
Well, thank you for being the way you are, and we see your vigils, your all of your actions. They're so beautifully documented, and heartbreaking documented, on your social media, as in your Glass Walls book as well, and also on our vegan FDA platforms, as you're kind enough to let them share them with our followers, should I say. I think it would be fair to say, though, I think that pretty much every activist here in New Zealand, at least, has wondered at some time or another with regard to, the frequency of your vigils and your actions, and the way that you write about them when you get home. How does she keep going? How do you keep putting yourself through this? And with all the horror and inhumanity that you witness week in, week out, how is it that you take care of yourselves once you return home from a vigil or another kind of event? Is there any way that you can find peace, or is that not possible? Is that what drives you?
When I'm at a vigil, I look into the eyes of the animals, and sometimes I can have a feel that there's a real connection with an individual animal. I remember once talking and singing to a cow who was at the back of the truck, and it took longer for this particular cow to be unloaded. And so we had a contact for about 10 minutes. And when the cow got to the top of the ramp and ready to go down into the yard, he or she stopped and looked straight back at me as if to say, "Can't you help me?" And I can still see that cow today, as well as countless other eyes of frightened, depressed, confused, hungry, cold, bewildered animals. It's always there. But sometimes too, you may have seen this also. On social media, we can see some really horrific sights. I don't watch graphic videos intentionally, but sometimes something will pop up in my news feed. And once I saw a photo of a pig who had been thrown into a scalding tank, fully conscious. And the tank is within pig slaughterhouses to clean the skin of the animal once they're no longer conscious, supposed to be. But in slaughterhouses throughout the world, there's a significant percentage of animals who are not sufficiently stunned or not stunned at all when they undergo the killing, throat slitting or whatever. This animal was fully conscious and in the scalding tank, and with the steam around the pig was raising. And I have never seen such agony. A pig is very expressive. If you look at a pig's eye, it looks like a human eye, and their face is actually quite expressive. Now that image is just below my consciousness, and if I should get into a shower that's a little bit hot, a bit of hot water splashes on me, I scream. I yell out, I cry, I wail, because that's what comes to mind immediately. So it has taken a toll on me, no doubt. Sorry, I've been rambling so much. I'm trying to get back to your question, and your question was, how do I keep doing it, take care of myself? Is that right? Yeah. But I'm fortunate in that I teach music part-time up to about probably 17, 18 hours a week to young children. And it's very sweet. I don't know if you've ever taught young children. You've obviously been around young children, but I've never had my own children. But having contact with them is welcome in my life, and very a lovely counterpoint to the hours that I sit in front of a computer or I'm at a vigil, and kind of putting myself through all of the sad things that we voluntarily take on because we want to make a difference. So definitely that helps. The other thing I do, which is a bit crazy, is that I like to watch YouTube videos and Netflix videos on Mount Everest. Anything to do with Mount Everest, and expeditions to Everest, and there's a lot of them, and sometimes I've seen them twice, 3 times, 4 times, and I watch them again and again. I go to bed and watch them on my phone usually. There's something about watching an Everest documentary that somehow calms and comforts me. I don't know anyone who's less sporting than I am. I'm absolutely useless. But I think it's partly the sheer will that climbers have to use to get to the top of Everest. I think above 8,000 meters, you're in a death zone, and you're fighting for the human body wasn't designed to live at that level of height, and there's only a third of the amount of oxygen there, and they're fighting every moment for breath. Every time they put a foot forward, it's agony for them, but they keep doing it, 1 foot after the other, 1 foot after the other, going on sheer willpower. Maybe I kind of feel that if they can get to the top of Everest, then if they can show that kind of bravery and courage, then I can to help the animals, do what I can, find the courage in me to do what I can to change this terrible situation that they live in, especially our farmed animals I'm talking to. But it's not only farmed animals. It's just across the board, isn't it? Our assumption that we have more rights than every other living creature on Earth, and we can do what we want with them. So, yeah, it's a mighty cause, I think, that we're all involved in, and it does take courage, and it does take tenacity, and a clear vision about what we want to achieve.
Well, that's some fantastic insight, and a great way to recover from that. And I think as when we was talking to the founder of Animal Hero Kids, she was saying about how I think every activist, when they've been in it for long enough, has some form of PTSD, because of what we're dealing with all the time. And it is such a, even for me doing the editing for this series, most recently doing episodes and research, I've had to look through a lot of graphic stuff and some of the things that you've described, and it really does shock you down to the core. But for me, I've got someone as well that I watch a lot of YouTube videos because it makes something silly, but it makes me happy and takes my mind, takes me off something else, and also gives me drive elsewhere.
Sure, yeah. We need to try to find that balance, yeah.
And yeah, I definitely advise to all of our activists out there to make sure that, if you have a hobby, doesn't matter what it is, make sure you pursue it as well, just to make it so that you've got that separation as well. You don't want to be separated from the issue, but you need to separate yourself from constantly having to feel that, because the human body is not made to do that. Like in the death zone, our our minds, our bodies are not made for us to focus into this dark place 24/7. As noble as it is to sometimes do that, but yeah, thank you for that advice. It's fantastic. But for such a gentle and softly spoken lady, you have immense strength, and it's deceptive, because you're such a strong woman. And how have you learned to conduct yourself best at vigils and protests, particularly when being challenged or confronted by aggressors? And we know from some of your vigil write-ups and stuff like that, that you do get some aggressive folks towards you.
Mm. Well, I do the vigils as part of the worldwide Save movement, which I think has about 1,000 chapters now worldwide. And it was started by the wonderful Anita Crines, so about 11 years ago now, I think, after an experience she had walking her dog and seeing pigs delivered to Fairman's Pork, a huge slaughterhouse in Toronto. Anyhow, she had the idea of, inspired by Tolstoy, that when we see suffering, we should not look away. On the contrary, come closer and see if we can help. So, as part of the Save movement, I've got a role as a country liaison here in New Zealand, certain responsibilities involved with that. About a year ago, I was joined by another country liaison. And so the two of us have supported also in our roles by the wider Save movement. We have weekly or fortnightly meetings with the country liaisons in Australia, and monthly meetings with country liaisons all over the world. The Save movement has an individual benefactor. Nobody's quite sure who it is. I used to wonder if it was Joaquin Phoenix because he does vigils when he can in LA, in other places, but nobody really knows. But that means that Save make money available. I get a small amount every 3 months as country liaison. It helps me to support our chapters here in New Zealand. We've got 11 chapters here in New Zealand now, who do vigils and other actions on behalf of the Save movement. So that's, I do feel supported, we feel supported, and we try to sort of grow a close and dedicated team. The Save movement is love-based, so that means that we don't respond in kind. So if we get a middle finger by a passing motorist, we don't return it. And in general, we try to return love for the hate and the aggression that we get. I'm not always very successful at that, I must admit. Just on the weekend, there's so many stories that come up all the time when you've been doing this as long as I have. But just on the weekend, a driver who was delivering pigs to one of the slaughterhouses saw me photographing. And he said, stop photographing his truck, you effing slut. And then I continued, because I'm within my rights to be doing it. So, and this is what we do, we document it and share it on social media. And then he came over to me right into my face and he said, if you don't stop, I'll break your camera. And so I didn't say anything, and eventually and I did say, please watch your language, and he he went away finally. I think he knew that he wasn't prepared to step over the line either. But we've had glass thrown at us and pieces of meat thrown at us. Someone had an orange thrown at them and had a big, when it's thrown as a missile, it can create quite a thwack, and they had a big bruise on their shin. But yes, for me, I'm not a person who's easily intimidated, and I'm not afraid of bullies. But I need to make sure that I respond as I should, with understanding and love, and not with, certainly not with violence or aggression. There's enough violence and aggression in the world as it is. I don't want to add any more to that.
It can be a very hard thing, as I know.
Yes, I was thinking, listening to Sandra.
When I went and did one of my first protests, which was against live export, a ute with two young lads drove past, and they had a dead deer in the back that they had strapped into there, and they were like, "Oh, woohoo! Look at this dead deer in the back." And I was trying to be all composed, and my adrenaline kicked in, and then it came out a very loud "F you" and a big old middle finger from me, and I didn't even, within a second that had happened, because I just, I hadn't had the practice and the composure not to do that. And
that's happened to me. Well, I don't swear. I'm not a person who swears, but it's happened that I've said some things that I've regretted too. We're all human, and in that situation, it's a very tense situation. Even after all these years, every single time I go to a vigil, I'm nervous, and I have a sinking feeling, because it's quite hard. It's quite hard to do. And the hardest thing is knowing that you can't help those individual animals.
Yeah, that's the thing, is these people, you're already in a hard situation when they're antagonizing you. It can be very hard to hold that back, and you do so well, and I didn't do so well in that first one, but I'm learning.
Learning. I guess, I mean, emotions are always running high, aren't they? But it's great to hear as well that although you're alone through, physically through a lot of your events, as part of the Animal Save movement, you're not truly alone, at least in what you're doing. And it's great there's such a presence here in New Zealand, which we'll talk a bit more about soon. But you've mentioned that you have interviewed one of my heroes, Philip Wallen, and in 2018 you received the prestigious Philip Wallen Animal Welfare Award, in which you travelled to India for the presentation. Would you mind explaining what that award was for, and how it felt to have your years of advocacy recognised in such an amazing way? I mean, I know that you never do it for recognition, as so many activists don't, but it must have come as quite a surprise, although so well deserved. How was that for you?
It really was a surprise. When I got the first email from India, I thought it was some kind of bizarre joke, so I ignored it. And then a few days later, there was a follow-up asking if I'd seen the first email, and I was one of those chosen for the Philip Wallen Award, and could I send more details about my work and my activism? So I thought, well, maybe there is something in it, and I contacted Philip. I interviewed him in my show, so we knew each other, obviously. And I said, "Is this bona fide, this email that I've had?" And he confirmed that it was. What it is, he grew up in India, and he, up until I think he's about 18, he lives there. And I've got a connection with India too. I've lived there and been there on 6 different occasions. So he has a friend in India who was the head of an animal rights organisation up near Delhi, and contacted Philip and said, "I'd like to start an award in your name. Can you please put forward the name of some likely candidates?" And my name was one of them that Philip put forward. And I think how I ended up getting it was probably down to my solitary vigils, Yograj, the man who was funding it. And there was cash prize involved with it, plus an all-expensive trip paid to India. So it was a considerable amount of money, really. And he just kept coming back to the solitary vigils. And he said that was really what made me choose you. But yes, it was unexpected. But it was very good. I spoke to school groups and universities and colleges in the Haryana, Delhi area for about 2.5 weeks, and was interviewed by Radio India. So there was an opportunity for outreach as well.
That's awesome. It was, so exciting. Like, I guess for you, going to India several times as well, it must have really kind of felt like a special place to receive the award as well.
Yes. I want to, as soon as COVID is, under control, it would be my intention to go back to India several months every year, even up to 6 months, and do outreach there. One of the people I met when I was there last time was Indira Gandhi's daughter-in-law, Maneka Gandhi, who was Minister for the Environment in the Modi government at that time. And she said that if I wanted to come back, I could work in some of her shelters, and she would sort of help me to find things to do that would be worthwhile. Have you been to India?
No, never.
I'm sure you two would love it. Honestly, I'm sure. You're so adventurous. I'm surprised that you haven't been to India so far. But it's hard for an animal activist because everywhere, everything's out in the open. You see the skinny, mange-ridden dogs, starving, dying of thirst, dying, dead on the roads, the cows walking around with toast rack ribs, eating rubbish in plastic and taking it into their bodies and eventually dying from that, wandering in front of traffic and getting injured. It's all in your face there, and even slaughterhouses are right on the roadside. I lived opposite a chicken slaughterhouse, and it was just a little kind of tent, and there were crates of hens packed into it, and someone would come out of the church that was also nearby and choose their dinner or their lunch. They'd take and the slaughterer would take the squawking hen out and put its neck on a board and put his or her neck on a board and chop off the head right there in the open. So it's really in your face. But I feel sometimes I want to do more hands-on work with animals. I want to embrace an animal. I want to do more of that. When I look at the cows and the sheep and the pigs, I can't embrace them. I often want to. I want to climb over the fence and get down and hug them.
Yeah. Oh, be wonderful for you to get to do that as well, especially after so much heartbreak of not being able to get hands-on with them. I can just see you doing that, and I really hope that comes off for you soon.
Yeah, it's fantastic you going over there to do that advocacy work. There's many places we'd love to go, like especially through a series. We've met so many wonderful people, but we made a commitment a few years back not to fly because of the environmental reasons. And for us, we'll wait until hopefully they develop some new fangle-dangled transport technology for us one day. Otherwise, we'll be sticking here and doing it from afar for now. But it's fantastic seeing what you're doing, and it's so wonderful that you can go there and make such a difference with your time. But it's so heartwarming as well for us watching your progress over the local Facebook groups and such, and seeing how you're regularly joined now by other activists who travel hours to come join you on your vigils. And yeah, it's wonderful. How are the young activists of the next generation shaping up? Is the future in good hands?
Yes, I think the future's in very good hands. Here in Wanganui, we're a bunch of old ladies, but there are other activists in New Zealand in their older years who are doing really, really good work. But I think the future does lie with the younger people, and they're smarter. I think certainly a lot smarter than I was at their age, and more in tune and more compassionate, more technologically capable. Oh, can I introduce you to my little girl, Shishi?
Yeah.
Yes.
Here you go.
Oh, bless.
This is Shishi,
What
my
a
little
sweet.
Ishon.
All dressed warm for the winter.
Yes, the young people, we need more young people though, and we need more middle-aged people and older people. We need more people to be making the decision to do something, anything, a little or a lot, to help bring about the end of animal exploitation and cruelty.
Well, hopefully all of our activists and advocates who are watching this series and part of the vegan FTA community can get out there and help us get more people on board, get them to go vegan, and then get them to be activists, and yeah, bring this voice even louder, and learn from the wisdom of our older activists, and then these bringing together that wisdom then with the tech knowledge of the younger ones. It's fantastic. We are on a winning ticket, I think. It's just like when we spoke to Justin Barker, it's all just about getting it in time with everything, before everything blows up.
Definitely. Time is of the essence. And you've got a website as well as a book, End Animal Slaughter, which we will be sure to provide a link to. What made you decide to create that, and what kind of information or resources can people expect to find on there?
It's a bit of a sore point with me at the moment, but 3 years ago, when some publicity was in the paper and national papers about me singing to the animals at the slaughterhouse, someone contacted me. They were a web designer, and they said, I'll build you a web page for nothing. So I took them up on it, and but I asked some other people to come on board with me. I was hoping for a lot of original material, and I knew I couldn't do 4 or 5 articles a week. But again, everyone's busy, and they have their commitments, and there are other platforms working for animals, and so it was pretty much left just to me alone again. And to keep it going, I've been looking around for suitable articles that I've recycled with perhaps new photos and an introduction, that kind of thing. But I'd dearly love there to be more original work. But Jackie, thank you. Once you said to me that I could probably recycle my own blogs into articles for this. I never actually thought of doing that, but I could probably do that, and there would be more original content. But I'm a bit behind with it. I don't think I've put anything on it for about a month. However, if anyone listening wants to help me with my website or would like to be a regular contributor, not looking at anyone, you too, I would love that. I really do need to get on top of that one.
Oh, be wonderful.
That would
Yeah.
be
Well,
great, and you've got some awesome content on there, and absolutely put your posts up there. You know, that's your Facebook posts are so beautifully written and so in depth and so powerful. You know, it would be a shame things get lost so quickly on social media. You know, as you've shown with the powerful words that you've had in your Glass Walls book. You know, if we can document those all together, that it really makes for quite some reading, and you know, it's so educational as well as powerful. So yeah, definitely.
The final quote in my little book. Put my glasses on again. It's by H.G. Wells from Utopia. In all the round world of Utopia, there is no meat. There used to be, but now we cannot stand the thought of slaughterhouses. And it is impossible to find anyone who will hew a dead ox or pig. I can still remember as a boy the rejoicings over the closing of the last slaughterhouse. And this is my aim. I want to stay around until every slaughterhouse in New Zealand and in the whole is covered. And I'll consider that much what has been done.
Thank you for watching this episode. If you'd like to support our speaker, then follow the links provided in the description. If you're enjoying this content, then please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave a like on our videos or drop a comment with something that you've learned. Your love and support means the world to us, and we thank you all for watching this.